Hi everyone and welcome to the last week of my program. So for the final week I thought we'd do something a little bit more fun. So today we're going to be talking about Alberto Giacometti. I'm pretty sure that I butchered his last name, but he was an artist who did a lot of 3D sculptures, and one of his most famous pieces was called The Square. And it shows a bunch of tall stick figures that are disproportionate, which means that they're not actually to the proportions of humans. They are just created for this piece in these proportions. Each one of the figures is made out of bronze, and it's polished to give it a more shiny and dark sort of finish. And they're all just put onto this bronze plate together. So in order to create something like this, I just made one of the figures, and this is what I ended up creating. So what you're going to need in order to create this is pipe cleaners, tinfoil, and scissors. And you will need one small piece of paper. So what I did first was I made the pipe cleaner structure in order to create the actual piece. So I took two long pipe cleaners and stuck them together at the top, and this is to create the legs, and I stuck them together by twisting them. So then what I did was I took the small piece of paper and I crumpled it up into a ball, like a very small ball, and I put it in the center of a pipe cleaner and twisted the pipe cleaner around it. This is going to be the head and the arms. Then I took the leg piece, and because I had a little bit of excess on the front of the leg piece where the two connect, I just weaved that into the head piece and I twisted that together at the top. And then once I had done that, I had the whole body done. And so one problem that you might run into is you're going to want to make sure that you leave enough room on the leg piece so that it can tie into the head piece. So if I were to have just cut it off right here, it would be much harder to tie into the headpiece. So I would leave about an inch of room at the end where you twist them off. And then next, I did decide to cut a bunch of strips of aluminum foil. I would not recommend doing this though, and I'll explain why. So whenever I cut the strips of foil, I put them onto the legs, and it took me about 15 minutes to try and do one leg, and there was still pipe cleaner showing, and then the pieces were just crumpling up, and it was just a whole mess. So what I did instead was I just took bigger pieces of aluminum foil that were about the same height as the legs, and I just folded them on top of each other instead of doing smaller strips. That just made it easier overall, and it made it look less messy. So I did pieces of aluminum foil on both legs, and then I did them on the arms and the head. So what I did then was I took a sheet of aluminum foil, just a small one, and I put it across the front section and just bent it into the corners. That way it secures it into place, and it looks like I sort of also created a stomach at the same time. And then what I did was I flipped it over and did the same to the back, just with the one small sheet and bending it into the corners. And then after all that, I had this, and as you can see, there's not really anything poking out. And then I just went through and took very small pieces and just attached them to the bottom right here, just to make sure that the pipe cleaner isn't showing through where the foot should be. Now if you want these to stand, I didn't do this, but you can probably take a small piece of aluminum foil and just crumple it up over the bottom here, and it would sort of create like a foot sort of thing, and then you can probably stand it if you balance it. And then what I did was, I did try to make a dog, but I wasn't able to figure out how to wrap it around the legs, but it just turned into a mess. And so I decided to abandon that idea just because it wasn't working. But if any of you can figure it out, that would be really cool. But it just got too complicated for me to figure out in that time. But overall, I think it's a pretty fun project. You're still able to create something cool. So that's all I have for that. Just one more thing that you might run into while you're doing this. I wouldn't layer a bunch of pieces of tinfoil on top of each other. If you already do one layer on a piece of the pipe cleaner, and you want to redo it, just take it off, don't go over it, because then the tinfoil just sort of like crumples together on top of each other and it just creates a whole mess. And then it sort of starts to like cut itself and it creates like strips on top of the pipe cleaner, and there's no way you can work with that. I had that happen to me a couple times, and then I just sort of took it all off and started over. Really doing the bigger like rectangles of tinfoil over the pipe cleaners is really what made the difference for me. So I hope you try this. I've had a lot of fun with this program. And I hope that you guys have too. Again, this is the last one, so next week there won't be another one of these. But again, I really enjoyed doing this, so thanks for watching.